everybody, and welcome into another Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katulka, and with me is none other than the Rebbe, the sage himself, Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir?
I am doing great. Happy Hanukkah to you.
And to you, and Merry Christmas.
Well, not yet. It's not Christmas. Well, you could wish me Merry Christmas.
Well,
it's Hanukkah.
But it's all going to converge.
I am laser focused on Hanukkah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Hanukkah, but this is the Jew and Gentile podcast.
That is true. I'll give it to you.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Great. Well, welcome in, everybody. We've got a great show for you. We've got a special guest. We're going to be talking all Hanukkah
we
today.
got a special guest.
All right. Here we go. Welcome in. Well, we are going to dedicate this entire episode of the Jew and Gentile podcast to Hanukkah and a little bit of Christmas.
We have to
because you can't have Christmas without Hanukkah.
That's correct. That's correct.
And so before we jump into that, though, just a fresh reminder, we're still, Steve, in our season of giving, which is your opportunity, if you're a listener, to get on board with FOI Equip and to help us raise $10,000 in order to continue not only the Jew and Gentile podcast.
We need a few shekels.
Steve's holding up.
We need some shekels.
Turn them around, Steve, so the camera can see what it's.
All right.
That's right. It's
we need some shekels. Not these kind of shekels. These we eat. But we need shekels.
Hey, Steve, people are going to start thinking we don't need the money if you're holding up big gold coins like that.
That is true. That is true.
But
this is compliments of my wife, Alice Herzig.
That's right.
And she said, I only could get 2, so I'm not bringing them for the grandkids because there's 4 of them and there'll be arguments.
All
so
right.
There's one for you.
Giddy up.
One for me, and later when our guests come, I'll give them, they don't get one of these, but they do get a little bag of, you know what this is called, Chris?
This is gelt.
Gelt. The Gentile is learning.
I've hung around with you for a little too long.
This is Hanukkah gelt.
That's right.
And we're going to talk about gambling. Do you know, Chris, as a youngster before kindergarten, I was gambling.
Were you?
I was gambling. Yeah, they didn't take me to Gamblers Anonymous. But I was gambling, and usually it was for pennies, but sometimes it was for Hershey's Kisses.
Okay, great. Well, and that's what this is. This is kind of a nice combination of both, right?
It is perfect.
Because this isn't actually real. If you're wondering, oh, wow, that's a lot of what's going on there.
Hey,
it's a
if
big
that's
gold
solid
coin.
gold, I'm a millionaire.
Yeah,
here.
exactly. But it's not. It's actually chocolate.
It's actually, foil that's gold. Wrapped around or wrapping over milk chocolate.
Exactly. Well, listen, I'd like to encourage you to go to gofoi.org/FOI Equip. And there you can give online to help raise $10,000 to continue the Jew and Gentile podcast, to continue our teaching. Our website has been updated. We have 4 months of classes lined up for you to sign up for right now. You can sign up for Tabernacles class. That's coming up in January. You can sign up for our February class with Steve and a round table of Jewish believers that are talking about what it's like to grow up as what it's like to be a Jewish believer, or as we've mentioned before, a heaven-bound Hebrew.
Heaven-bound Hebrew. But Chris, you got to tell the story. I know you probably told it last time, but we really believe that giving to this is helpful and a real ministry. There was somebody who talked to you who's a youth pastor, music, and said that Yael's Equip course was it was a turning point. I don't want to put words in his mouth. You know the exact words, but it was highly significant. In fact, I've shared that with a couple of people since you shared that testimony on the importance of Equip. For that person, Equip was pretty important. And we were doing Hebraic music worship, and it said it spoke to him. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
So the Brandsburgs, who are good friends of ours down in North Carolina, I believe it was a friend of theirs who had taken the class and I believe leads worship himself. And he went up to them afterwards and said, that class changed my life. To be able to
bada bing, bada boom.
I know, right there alone is a good reason to help continue the ministry.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
That's right. All right, let's turn this whole thing off. Shut it down. But not only that, Steve, are we helping encourage people by diving into the Bible and learning the scriptures from a Jewish perspective. That's why we exist, because sometimes people forget the Bible's a Jewish book. Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. So helping us get a better context and feel for the Jewish scriptures, but also we had interns, Steve, that actually just wrapped up a 3-month FOI Equip internship, and the ministry they did in 3 months is just absolutely amazing. So the $10,000 also goes to help raise up a new batch of FOI Equip interns.
We need a new batch.
Yeah, we need a new batch. Exactly right. A batch of interns.
Yep.
And we've got interns. We've got people who want to serve with Friends of Israel. And so this is a great way for them to get involved. And so your gift will help not only the Jew and Gentile podcast and other podcasts like Ty Perry's Gesture podcast, but it will also help us expand our teaching with FOI Equip and bring in interns to help take all that they're learning with FOI Equip and with the Jew and Gentile podcast and all the things that we're doing, but actually taking them and going out and doing ministry in the Jewish community. So again, to help us raise $10,000 before the end of the year, please go to gofoi.org/FOI Equip. Steve, happy Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
We have a friend that you've actually spent some Hanukkahs with over the years.
We are so excited to have the man, the myth, and the legend. The man is a former FedEx driver who has driven around Cherry Hill, a very Jewish community. A guy who could lead tours by himself around that community knows where. Who's calling you, Chris?
My wife's calling.
Oh, of course. She's anything she could do to disrupt our work.
Exactly.
That's right. But a man who knows where Muhammad Ali used to live.
Wow.
Pretty amazing. A man who's great in music. He's a drummer. And a guy who has been so kind and gracious to drive us around as we deliver Hanukkah baskets. This man, this myth, this legend is none other than Glenn Johnson. Glenn, good to have you here.
Good morning, guys. How you doing today?
Good. Good to see you.
We're doing good. Look at that smile.
He's got a great
he's
radio voice.
He's happy to be here.
I know.
It won't be long before he'll be saying, well, how do I get out of here?
Well, he's already drawn me in, though, with his radio voice. He's got a good one, Glenn. He's got a great radio voice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sitting behind the drums, they never give me microphones. So it's kind of nice to get one for once.
We're going to have to pull a Genesis or something like that so we get you a microphone, like the band Genesis or whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder
Phil
if he'll
Collins.
start, maybe old Blue Eyes. He sounds almost like Frank.
That's right. Maybe he'll start singing.
No.
But, somebody who's not on camera and who's not going to say anything.
She's not sitting too far from him.
But she has been a fan of ours and disputes who's the number one fan of the 6 that we have.
And I'm not going to lie, she's got some great arguments for...
She does. When she heard that her husband was coming on, she said, Steve, can I just come and sit there as long as you don't bother me? I don't want to say anything.
That's right.
I don't want to be on camera. She wants to be like Sergeant Schultz of Hogan's Hill. I know nothing. I see nothing. I am nothing.
But she's here.
But she's here.
And she's
We're
got
glad
a great
to have
seat,
her.
Liz. Great to see you. And she's just... Oh, there she... We got something out of her. Maybe
They'll
you
hear
heard it.
our people will hear a faint something. That's her
right.
saying, I'm happy to be here.
Glenn, you and Steve have been partners in crime for a few years now. Just to catch our listeners up, maybe they don't realize this, but we have a Hanukkah basket ministry. Now it's a box, but a Hanukkah basket ministry where we like to say Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends all around the country. You two focus on here in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area, but to say Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends, we take them a Hanukkah basket filled with great Israeli goodies,
All
salts,
from Israel. Only
teas.
from Israel.
That's right. All the products in there, and we fill it up with a lot of great stuff to just say Happy Hanukkah. And man, to see the look on our Jewish friends' face when they see, that Christians are saying Happy Hanukkah, I think it kind of throws them for a loop a little bit, but they get very excited. But I thought maybe you two could share some fun stories together of dropping off some Hanukkah
Well, we'll start
baskets.
with Glenn. I have all kinds of stories, but Glenn, is there anything? I know there should be at least one thing, and certainly if you want to talk about that, if you don't, I will. But what was the one thing that you enjoyed about delivering baskets?
I just see it on people's faces. I mean, I get to sit in the car, but Steve will go up to the house and, he gets to talk to him. He can schmooze with him.
Schmooze,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
Steve's.
But, just to seeing that someone would come, you could deliver it by mail, but it's so much cooler when you see a face and a hand that's with it. I mean, that's probably the biggest joy of seeing the whole thing going down.
But Glenn, you've gone with me. We go into that
Right.
big business, the big building there by the, I forgot the
up
address.
in Ballackinwood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ballackinwood, and there we deliver a box to ZOA, Zionist Organization of America, and there was before COVID, one of the gentlemen that we delivered to had just lost his wife. Do you remember that?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it was
We were
it was
able
rough
to,
for him, but it was a joy for him. And
Yeah.
just a nice moment to to see that there's other people out there and just to help him get along.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and not Jewish. I mean, we're Christians that come and give him gifts.
Yeah.
In a time of need like that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool too, Steve, that you get ushered around by a professional driver. I mean, the guy is just he's lived his whole life for this moment, and there you are. You're the one getting schlepped around.
Hey, we need GPS, my people. We wandered around for 40 years on an 11-day journey. So the idea of going someplace where we don't know, even with GPS. Do you know I had GPS once, and the lady directed me to a place that if I continued, the bridge was out for 3 years. I got to call the guy.
You'd still be waiting there.
I had to call the guy. Hey, the lady took me here, but this was up in northern New York. He said, oh, yeah, that bridge has been out for 3 years. Well, the lady took me there. What can I tell you?
The lady. Well, you have Glenn helping you. Hey, Glenn, I also know that you're a big Flyers fan.
Correct.
And there's a nice little connection there for you delivering Hanukkah baskets and the Flyers. And I think you and Steve had a great opportunity there, didn't you?
We did have a great opportunity. We met a relative of the former owner of the Flyers. And I don't want to use names and all that kind of thing, but we did end up talking to him. He had a great history with the Flyers. And sure enough, what happened?
So we go there, and I just sit in the car, and wait for him to come up, and sit in the car. Car's running. He comes walking out and said, he invited us in the house. He's got great coffee. You got to come in and have a cup of coffee. So I figued, okay, we'll go in and get a cup.
Did you know that you were at the Flyers relative's house?
Oh yeah.
So you're getting invited in. What's your feeling at the? Are you feeling anything? Or are you excited now that you've been ushered into the house?
Oh, it's cool to meet a relative. You know. But first, to find the house, I mean, that's the GPS. The GPS takes you to one side of the road. You got to go around. And this is the first year that we actually found it on the first
This year, they put up a number, finally. We didn't even have a number, but he found it anyway.
It sits a couple hundred yards back off a road, so you're driving through the woods.
These people have, they're well-heeled, so they don't want anybody to come.
Yeah,
They don't even want delivery people to come.
That's right. And here you two guys come with, looking for their house, probably scaring the daylights out of them. So
he was pretty nice. He was very nice to us.
But then Steve goes in and says, oh, my driver, he's a great Flyers fan. He loves that. So he comes out and said, hey, come on in. So again, I leave the car running. We're in there for half an hour. He's serving coffee and, just having.
And those two are talking Flyers. I mean, deep. I know none of these people they're talking about. But
I remember hearing that you guys were talking old Flyers history.
Oh, yeah. Beginning.
Broad
the
Street
very
bullies.
beginning.
And, all that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So listen what happened. The man said, oh, if you guys interested in going to the game, I'll send you tickets. Oh, really? I mean, you don't. Oh, yeah. No. Hey, give me your address. I'll send you tickets. So the story gets really good because I invite Glenn and Liz. Trying to find people like the Flyers. I invited my son, and it's already the end of December. It's beginning of January. I got nothing. I got bupkis. But how do you don't call somebody and say, hey, where are my tickets?
Yeah,
I'm telling Alice, have you checked the mail? There's nothing. I'm taking a walk, which I do every single day, and I get a phone call from my wife. I'm sorry, Steve. Well, what? Why? What happened? I almost threw out the tickets. What? She said they were in the shredding pile, and I was going through them.
Oh, my word. Are you serious?
And I think Glenn when I called you about it, what did we have, a week? I think
something like that.
But
it wasn't much time.
He had sent it 2 weeks ago, and she didn't tell me. We almost didn't go, but we did.
They were
go.
They were there. They were in the shredding pile.
He sent them, and I'm thinking, boy, this guy's telling me, and I got bupkis, and I'm inviting other people, and I got nothing. And
these
as
weren't
it turned
just
out,
regular tickets either.
No,
we got to sit in a box.
Oh, that's
we got
amazing.
To sit in his box. It's
that's amazing.
So,
it was.
So you got all the luxuries and everything. Wow, this is really cool.
It was a Hanukkah miracle.
It was high society.
That's
high
great.
society. We had a great time. These guys know hockey. I'll tell you this. We walk in. Hockey. I love baseball, but hockey fans.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say 80% of the people bought the $150 shirts. They had them. The Johnsons had
the jerseys?
Yeah,
Oh,
the jerseys.
No, they're hardcore.
Hardcore.
Yep.
They are devoted hockey fans.
Yep.
I give you credit. I don't
Devoted and Philadelphia sports fans are two words that just go together. I mean, it's
intense.
Yes, intense
is the word. I mean,
I'm one
and
of them,
Liz,
so.
she was all over him, yelling and screaming, and I never saw her that way.
Hit him.
That is fantastic. See, you guys have great stories of being able to bless the Jewish people during
And we're
Hanukkah.
already getting letters back. I just answered an email today from actually when Glenn took 2 of our gals with him to the Jewish Community Center, the JCRC, and already delivered the boxes. They're so thrilled, and they always say, we love finding ways to partner with you to help the Jewish people. And Chris, that's part of our mission statement.
That's right.
We certainly stand with and communicate the Messiah, but we stand with and for the Jewish people, and just on this podcast, against anti-Semitism, for the nation of Israel and God's chosen people.
It's true. It's true. And it really, it's amazing how a simple gift, a gesture, helps to build those relationships between the Christian community and the Jewish community. And I love that you two get to go out.
But not only is he a driver, Chris.
Oh,
this
yes.
guy is a In fact, I forgot I meant to bring my egg. He bought me an egg. Did you know?
The shaker egg.
Shaker egg.
Is it here in the building?
I forgot it. I was going to bring it. It's my grandkids use it all the time. Glenn is the one that actually made it possible for me to be recognized by John Wilcox, who is our vice president of finance, but also a person who's done music for us. And he, one Christmas for here at Friends of Israel, he gave me a tambourine because he saw me on the egg that Glenn gave me.
That's right. And you were in the Christmas band.
I was doing this, Chris.
That's right.
And then John said, "Oh, he's a musician." So he took the egg out of my hand.
I don't know if I go that far.
This man's wise too.
Rhythm and Steve don't go well together.
That's right. It's the tempo, you know. You need that tempo. But you've been playing drums, doing worship music, a part of worship bands and whatnot, and other bands for a very long time.
I mean, since I got saved, 30 years ago, I got saved and right on the team, and it's a joy to play worship. I always say it's the best seat in the house.
Yeah,
because you get to play drums unto the Lord, and then just to follow along the worship leaders and the Holy Spirit's moving along, and the drummer drives the bus.
He does.
So when the worship leader gets inspired by the Holy Spirit, he may want to take a different direction. It's like, well, that's not the direction I was going to, So sometimes you get handcuffed, but it's fun, you know. And people are there just to worship, they're not there to see a show or anything. And when you see people just their hands up and their eyes closed and just entering in, it's just a great feeling.
Well, Glenn has already played for Friends of Israel at conferences.
Oh yeah, he's played at the conferences, the Christmas. I think you've done. Did you do a Christmas event too?
Yeah.
For us, yeah.
Right.
He's all over the place.
He's all over the place with Friends of Israel.
He's like the mensch on a bench. He's everywhere.
Elf on the shelf.
Elf on the shelf.
That's the Gentile. The mensch on the bench or the elf on the shelf. What are you going to do?
Well, Glenn, I'm a drummer too, so I know that we've talked shop in the past about drums. But I saw this great video online the other day of in an African American church, and they have phenomenal drummers. Some of the phenomenal drummers that in those worship teams, and the drummers just go into town, and the pastor is the one singing too. And he turns around and says, "Knock it, like cut it back, like we're about to go." And the drummer's like, "Nope, I'm going. I'm taking the lead on this one, buddy." And so,
dropping into second gear, and we're jamming up.
And the pastor turns around and starts doing this, and he goes, "You mean more?" So it was a funny thing to watch until finally the pastor got up and practically took the sticks away from the drummer. So that happens too in drumming. We're always told to be quiet as drummers.
Yep.
So it's impossible. Well, listen, let's talk Hanukkah, Steve.
Let's talk. Chris, I brought some Hanukkah stuff.
Yeah, why don't we show, if you're watching online, why don't we, you can look at it and see it online, but if you're listening on the podcast, you can maybe hear it here. So, Steve,
first,
go ahead.
This is all compliments of my wife, who she just knows stuff. She knows where to get stuff. So she was the one that got the Hanukkah gelt.
That's right.
And so this is a Hanukkah sing-along microphone. So hopefully it'll pick up. That's the dreidel song, Chris.
I like it.
So when I'm with my grandkids, I'm
it's
like,
a microphone.
That's right.
That's right.
So we got that. But Chris, look at what else we
have.
have.
This is big.
This is huge, man.
Yes.
Or if you're in New York, huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
Well, and the reason this is huge is because it's a dreidel,
It is a dreidel.
but it's a advanced dreidel.
It's a neon light song dreidel.
All right.
It covers everything. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up.
It should.
But here we go.
Let's see. Oh, that's hilarious. It's spinning around. It's
with
letting
lights,
light
it's
out.
got lights.
But the best part is that you didn't have to spin it. You just click it and boom.
This is Jewish spinning of dreidel. You press the button and it does it for you.
Gone are the days where you had to actually spin
That's
it.
right. No hard, nothing hard here. Nothing hard.
That's right. We've got some menorahs too, or Hanukkahs, Steve. Look at this. The party keeps coming.
That's right. So the silver menorah, actually this was the menorah we used as a family growing up. My mother's had it. My mother's 98 years old. And several years ago, she said, you know what? This probably means more to you than me. And she said, I have other menorahs, but this is, so do you want this? I said, yeah, I definitely want it.
That's fantastic.
So that's the one that I grew up with. And this is the one that my kids and I have used, and Alice
Why
has
don't
used.
put this one over here so people can see it, Steve. See, your camera's over there.
Okay,
there you
so
go.
put it over
Yeah, put it
here.
over there. There you go.
And put it over here.
That way people, there you go.
So that's the, we also have.
So typically, for our friends who don't celebrate Hanukkah, you have a Hanukkah. We have several Hanukkahs here right now. A Hanukkah is different than a normal menorah.
A menorah is 7 branches, Chris, and you know that. And when you go into the tabernacle or the temple in the holy place, there'd be the menorah and 7 branches. 7 is a significant number. 6 days God created, 7th day he rested. 7's, we sometimes call it the perfect number. Well, this has 9 branches.
Yep.
So what's weird, Hanukkah is 8 days. So what's with the extra guy here? Well, it's interesting. There is no such thing as the a normal Hanukkah. There is nothing in the Bible about it. We know what the menorah looks like. It's got 3 on each side, with the middle one being the 7th. But this one, the only requirement, according to the rabbis, is that the 9th candle, or one of the 9, has to stand out.
Right.
It could stand up. It could be to the side. It has to stand out. And it is the shamus candle. And the shamus candle is the servant candle. That's the, am I arrested here? The little dinghy went off or something.
No, you're fine. Don't worry.
Is that your wife again?
It's Christmas. We're shopping, you know.
Is this okay,
What's
Chris?
this,
Should
that?
I buy this?
Buy
Do we
this?
have enough money? I'm overcharged
That's right,
already. All right.
exactly,
All right.
exactly.
So the shamus candle is the servant candle. And according to the rabbis, you light the shamus candle and it provides the light to the other candles, which bridges, Chris, into John chapter 10.
Yeah.
Do you have it? You can read
I can
mine?
get it up here, yeah.
Why don't you read John chapter 10, starting with verse 22? Because interestingly enough, Hanukkah, if I can use bad language, ain't in the Old Testament.
It ain't.
It ain't there. You could look all around, and it ain't there because it's what your class in Equip, I'm sure you talked about it, it takes place in what's called the intertestamental period. And you had a class in Equip on that, and people could access that. It'd be a perfect time now to access your class to get an idea, because it's an actual historical event. And we often say that without that event, without Hanukkah, Christmas would never happen. So, but now we're in the New Testament. Christmas did happen. The baby Jesus is born. He's the Messiah of Israel. He's incarnated. He's on the earth. He's demonstrating who he is. He's authenticating who he is. And in the Gospel of John, there were 7 signs, 7 miracles that Jesus performed that John said, I'm telling you, I could tell you a lot more. He says this at the end, not the way I'm saying it, but there's so much I could tell you, but these things were written so that you would believe. And so now we're in the middle of his story. It's Jesus' story, and we're in chapter 10 and verse 22. And you should read the whole thing, because this, Chris, in the New Testament, a Jewish Messiah is celebrating Hanukkah.
And it's important. It says, then came the festival of dedication. at Jerusalem. Well, I thought it was called Hanukkah, Steve, but it's called the
Same thing.
Festival of Dedication. Same thing.
Hanukkah dedication, same thing.
That's right. Same word. It was winter, so here we are.
It's
winter
cold.
time.
It's
That's right.
25th of Kislev.
That's right. And Jesus was in the temple courts walking in Solomon's colonnade, which is on the eastern side of the Temple Mount. So he's walking around the temple complex. And the Jews who were gathered around him saying, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly." You know,
Who are these Jews? This is the Jews. Does that mean every Jew in Israel was, there's Jesus? No, it's a specific group that John is referring to as the Jews. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, I'm guessing it's the religious leadership at that time.
100%. 100%.
But the point, though, too, is that the religious leadership is asking during a very significant time. They're asking him if he's the Messiah during Hanukkah. And the reason this is important is because Hanukkah is all about independence. It's all about sovereignty. It's all about freedom and liberty. And so the Jewish people were under the yoke of when Hanukkah came about back in 167 BC. All of the events that started taking place were a Greek king, a pagan king, was basically trying to strip the Jewish people of their Jewishness.
Either kill them or assimilate.
Or assimilate. That's right. Either be annihilated or assimilate.
And he didn't care which one. He'd do either one.
He could care less. He was actually just thinking about the fact that he wanted to turn the Jewish people into Greeks. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people did they did assimilate into Greek
just
culture.
Just like today, there's a lot of our people like baby back ribs.
That's
what are
right.
you going to do?
They did.
They do.
Yeah,
Yes.
And I, it's this. I always tell whenever I teach this class, I say, that what was going on with the Jewish people during this time of Hanukkah is something very similar to what Christians have to wrestle with as well. How much do we assimilate into the world that's surrounding us? Because honestly, the Greek culture was probably very tantalizing and exciting to the Jewish people. It was wealth. It was being comfortable. I always say it's like a warm bath. You just kind of, you don't want to get out. And here it is. It's surrounding them. And they have to ask a question, do we completely dive into this thing, or how do we maintain our identity and still, embrace the Greek culture around us? And so that's what Hanukkah starts to, Hanukkah finds a point where it's not a warm bath anymore. It's like a frog in a boiling pot.
That's exactly right. I was going to say, Chris, it sounds like frog's legs.
Exactly.
Wow, the frog feels pretty good. Hey, things are pretty good. A little of this, a little of that. And before you know it, the person's eating frog's legs.
That's right. And so that was what happened is that Antiochus IV, a Greek king, was actually very frustrated because he thought he was going to be able to defeat an enemy of his down in Egypt. And who comes?
The Romans said, "Get out of Dodge."
That's right. So he's going to defeat another Greek king. I know that's confusing, but then all of a sudden he looks up and there are these Roman ships coming saying, "Antiochus, go home." And so Antiochus has to march back through Jerusalem, and on his way up, he says, "I'm tired of these Jews. I'm tired of these people who don't act like us. They're different."
He was a spoiled brat. He gets mad, and when people get mad, like little kids, they stomp out. Or adults, we're more sophisticated. We slam doors. We kick the dog. And he was kicking the Jewish people.
Oh, big time. Yeah, that's right. He was very angry, very abusive.
Very.
And he goes through and he basically says, as he's going back up through Jerusalem, he's saying, that's it. We're done. We're not going to play this 50-50 thing anymore where you kind of like the Greek culture and we let you be who you want to be. From now on, you're either in or you're out. And out means you're dead. And so he stopped Torah reading, circumcision, Sabbath keeping, going
temple
to synagogue.
worship.
That's right. He actually installed a Greek god in the temple.
And the worst thing of all,
on the altar. That's where it's called the Feast of Dedication, because the temple was declared unclean.
It was
after
desecrated.
That's right.
Desecrated. It was an abomination. That's what Jewish people remember. That's the whole idea of coming back. It took 3 years to come back.
That's right.
Because at that time, Chris, we weren't fighters. We were farmers. We didn't fight, except for one family. They determined they were not going to compromise. They were not going to bow the knee. That's the Maccabee family.
That's right. Through Mattathias, an elderly priest from a town called Modain, which we're actually going to talk about in a little bit. But he stands up and says, "Over my dead body, I'll never sacrifice a pig."
And he kills the Hellenist guy, Jewish guy, who was saying, "Oh, I'll do it."
Yep. To save
Boom.
that's
that
right.
guy was gone.
He kills his own people. Then he kills the Greek guards.
His sons rise up with him.
And they end up actually in a guerrilla warfare.
We invented guerrilla warfare, Chris. We should get the credit
I'm
here.
telling you.
These were farmers. We attack, boom, we hit the mountains, and we look and we see, and we rush down, hit and run.
That's right.
You know what it did, Chris? The farmers gained confidence. They said, wait a minute, we could do this. It took 3 years. And by the way, a story about dreidels, where it came from. Did you know, Chris?
Did you know?
We get to our book, and of course, Emily helps us out, as she always does, and she comments on...
Has she written you yet?
No.
Okay, I'm waiting for Emily Stone to
I know
write.
we've sold 2 books so far. Maybe she'll be happy. I don't know. But the initial purpose, she says, of the dreidel game might have been, because I dispute this, or it might be the case, but either way, might be to cover the fact that Jews were studying the Torah when the Greeks had outlawed the study of Jewish texts. The Jews would hide out in caves to study, and if the lookout spotted an incoming Greek, the Jews would stash the scrolls and pretend to be gambling. Now remember,
so
Chris, I told you I gambled as a little kid because of the story I heard in my temple, my synagogue.
That's how
my
you made it
shul.
so well in life?
That's exactly right. Oh, yeah,
Struck
such a
big.
gambler. In my shul, we learned that the kids played a key role. They were playing gambling games in front of the military, the soldiers, and would listen. Oh, we're going to attack over here. So they would go relay to the adults. They would set up an ambush, and bada bing, bada boom, done. And the Jewish kids were part of it. And so to this day, we have a dreidel. This is called, look at this, Chris.
Dreidel treats.
There's one happy guy, dreidel treats.
That's right. There's candy in that thing.
There's candy in this. But there's letters, Chris, on each one. And the letters stand for Nes Gadol Hayasham. A great miracle happened there.
That's right.
So the question is, where? And who's saying it? This is for the diaspora Jews. So I'm a diaspora Jew. I'm outside of Israel. So a great miracle happened there. But if you're in Israel, you don't say a great miracle happened there unless you're pointing to Jerusalem. But in Israel, they say a great miracle happened here.
That's right.
Here.
And the word is po for that.
Yes. So anyway, it's a reminder that every aspect of Hanukkah is a reminder or remembrance of our deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
And our deliverance, being Jewish, means that, wait a minute, about 165 years later than Hanukkah, a Jewish baby is born. That Jewish baby is the most unique child in the history of anything, of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, Chris, you're talking about Christmas. There's 3 C's that I see. C's that I see. The cradle.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be celebrating the cradle. At Easter time, we celebrate the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And later, when we think of the abomination of desolation that in the book of Daniel, a future person's coming, Revelation chapter 19 says a king is coming. So you have the cradle, you have the cross, and the king.
And the king, that's
and
right.
the king. Those 3 ingredients is the gospel message.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those would have happened or could happen if Hanukkah didn't happen.
That's right.
If Antiochus was victorious, there'd be no Jesus.
It's interesting, too, because in the Hanukkah story, when, we were talking about the fact that Mattathias and his family, his sons, ultimately defeat the Greeks. They like this small band of Jewish zealots, if you will. They defeat the Greeks, and they rededicate the temple to God. They cleanse it and rededicate it by 165 BC, and that's why it's called the Feast of Dedication, because God they dedicate the temple back to God.
It's kosher.
It's kosher. And that's 165. But by 142 BC, finally, the Greeks completely give up and say to Simon, one of the sons of Mattathias, who started the revolt, you have your own independence. And for the first time since the Davidic kingdom in the Old Testament, that goes back to Solomon and the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel. It's the second time in Israel's history that they've had total autonomy and total independence.
It didn't last long, but they had it.
80 years it lasts.
Yep.
But still, the point, though, is that you have to imagine that that's only 165 years away from when Jesus appears on the scene, and he's celebrating Hanukkah. Hanukkah, to me, is the 4th of July. It is independence. The fireworks are going off. You got the lights. You got the excitement. And I even remember, that's right, you got the dreidels. They're singing, all that stuff. The menorahs are lit. When you're thinking about that, the Jewish people they were now back under Roman oppression. So they had that brief moment of independence. Now they're back under Roman oppression, and they're remembering what happened when they stood up against the Greeks, and they feel that sense of independence. And even when Simon became the high priest of the Jewish people, and they made him,
we call them Hasmoneans.
That's right. They were it was the Hasmonean dynasty. But it's funny when it even says in Maccabees that he was installed as this high priest until a greater prophet can come. That's the way they thought about it, that there's someone still greater coming. We have our own independence, and we're waiting for this Messiah figure to come. So, of course, during Hanukkah, when you're thinking about independence, the oppression of the Jewish people under Roman occupation, which I'm sure reminded them of the Greeks, when they're thinking about the fact that they did this at one point, now the religious leaders during Hanukkah are saying something very profound to Jesus. Are you the Messiah? Because I'm sure it's drumming up all of those feelings that they had of independence, freedom, sovereignty. And are you going to be the one to lead us against these Romans?
Chris, you presented it so well. Let me give the answer in today's vernacular.
Go ahead.
Where have you been, guys? What? Have you heard anything? Have you seen anything? Is this the first time you met me? Hello? Is there anybody there?
That's right, knocking on the door.
Think about it, Chris. When you read it in context, it's not like word about him is everywhere.
Yeah.
This is the person. Look, I agree.
But moments like this drum up messianic fervor. I mean, it's
100%,
because it's going to be at a couple, in the springtime when Passover comes, that messianic fervor comes back again. It rises up during Hanukkah, and then it goes down, and then Passover's coming, maybe the Messiah's coming, that kind of thing.
100%. But in his own words, I realize that this is written in Greek, and it's translated in English. What does he say? I told you. I told you. You didn't believe. Guys, are you listening to me? The works. What works? Think about what he's done,
Chris.
He's
already done.
He's fed people when there was hardly any food. He used a kid's lunch.
Mm-hmm.
He's healed people. They had issues. Blind people, they're seeing. People are hungry, are eating. And they're saying, hey.
Turned water into wine already.
Are you the Messiah?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? A doopsie-doo?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, this becomes one of Jesus's biggest arguments, too, is that you're always looking for a sign. It's not enough. It's never enough, and he condemns the religious leadership for this. And, in fact, I always tell people this. It's funny to me that in the Gospels, Jesus never condemns Rome. He never You would think this is Jesus's opportune moment to condemn Rome. There's one moment where it talks about paying taxes to Rome, and Jesus speaks very spiritually and perfectly with wisdom from the Father right into that situation. But other than that, never brings up Rome.
But he does bring up sheep.
He brings up sheep, but he also brings up the religious leaders. He condemns these people for leading the sheep of Israel astray, which is very important. That's why he calls himself the Good Shepherd.
And you know what he said? You guys aren't my sheep. You're just not of my sheep.
Yep.
I what more could I do? You're welcome to come, but feh, using Yiddish. Feh to you.
We've had some good Yiddish today. Glenn's
right.
already brought up some Yiddish.
That's right.
You've got some Yiddish.
But notice what he says, Chris, in the background of the Feast of Dedication, Independence Day, as you worded it. He said, I give unto them eternal life, victory, if you will. He is freedom. When we have eternal life, what are we free from? He has freed us from death.
That's right.
Now, in the context here, he hasn't died, he hasn't risen, but he's offering the kingdom. He's coming as the Messiah, and they are not paying attention. They're not. And to be fair, even the people who are for him right now are only for him because of what it gets them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And that's kind of the basis for Hanukkah. And the Hanukkah is comes from the story of Maccabees when they rededicated the temple. They went in there and they only had enough oil for one day. And
they needed more days to get the seal of the high priest in order to have kosher oil.
That's
so
right.
It took longer time. So they took what they had. This is the story. And scholars debate all this. Let them debate it. I can tell you this. We as Jews bought into it. Because every time a Jewish person celebrating Hanukkah, they're celebrating it with the menorah. And they're singing the dreidel song and they're lighting the candles. But the 9th candle, Chris, tell us about the servant candle.
Yeah, this is the Shamash candle, as you called it, is the one that the servant candle that actually is used to light each candle each night. So you don't just go light the first candle for the first night and the second candle. You actually always light the Shamash candle, which is the servant candle, and then you go over and you use the Shamash candle to light each candle for each night of Hanukkah.
That candle doesn't get light unless the Shamash servant candle gives it to him.
Very messianic. A lot of imagery of Jesus being the light of the world, Jesus being the one who gives the light. We don't get the light ourselves.
Oh, do you remember this? Maybe you sang it as a kid, or maybe your kids. My kids sang it, "This Little Light of Mine."
Yep.
Where does this little light of mine? I'm going to let it shine. Where's it come from? From Jesus.
That's right.
Jesus is the light giver. He is the one who gives us light.
Can I also add with the menorah? So that's used. That comes from the book of Maccabees. That's part, and that could be a true story, or it could be myth.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
That's right. That's why it's not inspired text. But at the same time, I saw this funny meme that said, Let me help you understand the 8-day, why we have the 8 candles on the menorah." He goes, the person said, "Let me update it for you. Imagine if you only had 1 hour left on your cell phone charge, but yet you got 8 hours out of it. That is the Hanukkah."
That's a good one.
I thought that was pretty funny.
A great miracle happened here.
Right. Just when you think your phone's going to go and die, boom, it lasts another 8 hours.
That might go down as they might build a whole holiday around that.
The cell phone. I've been there plenty of times, Steve, so I could have used a miracle.
Oh, man.
Okay, so that's Hanukkah. Steve, do you want to add anything else? Especially, we say this, honestly, there would not be Christmas without Hanukkah, because the Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus IV, was seeking to root out the Jewish people, to remove their identity. But because of that promise, Steve, that goes back to Genesis chapter 12, where God made a promise to Abraham and his family that could not be undone. It cannot be broken. It cannot be shattered. It is an eternal promise that God made to himself. He had to keep it. And it's amazing how, if you think about, there were so many moments in Jewish history, Steve, where it almost seemed like it was all about to unravel, but it just came down to one man, Mattathias. God, isn't it? You'd think that in that promise, God didn't say, I would make it easy for you or whatever. No, it actually boiled down to one man that said, "Over my dead body, I'm fighting against these people. Whether I live or die, I'm dying as a Jew." And that is what ultimately struck back up the Jewish identity once again. It was this close to being lost.
Well, Chris, there are two things as we think of Christmas and Easter as Jew and the Gentile. The main thing of Hanukkah isn't the dreidel, isn't the candy, the latkes, by the way, or donuts, oil, something. Yes. Right. Oh, yeah. I got some from Zippy and Robbie. They gave me Israeli donuts.
Did they really?
Yeah, yep. But it's not that. It's possible that Jewish people could miss what Hanukkah talks about. I think oftentimes we do as a people. Mattathias didn't want to compromise. He didn't want to assimilate. He wanted to remain Jewish, identify as a Jew, and follow the law. Which at that time, that's what marked a Jewish person. Christmas is also about lights. Christmas is about food. Christmas is about family. Christmas is about the cradle and celebrating. But we can miss it, Chris. And I think a lot of people do. They miss it. It's about the baby who is deity, who came here to die for our sins. If we just celebrate the cradle without the cross, then we're doing a mass injustice to the purpose of God. If the Jewish people just celebrate the great, wonderful July 4th, independence, without remembering that, wait a minute, assimilation shouldn't be an option for us. And as Christians, assimilation should not be an option. We should identify with the king. We should identify with the shamus candle.
Exactly. That is great. Well, happy Hanukkah, Steve.
Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and Glenn,
Yes.
the drummer man.
Yes.
Do you mind-
Not the
is your
little
fa-
drummer.
Is your favorite song the Little Drummer Guy?
It's one of them.
Ah, there you go. Ba-rum bum bum bum. Is that it?
That's
very
it.
good.
That's it. See, I wasn't raised with that, so I didn't know.
Chris, you're gonna have to give him some lessons. The rumpa-bum is
I know.
it's pretty rough.
Trust me.
Okay, how do you do it? Tell me how you do it.
Rumpa-bum-bum.
There you go. Wow. What are you gonna do?
That's right.
Rumpa-dum-bum.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah, look at that guy go.
We're going to have come on and have Glenn do a whole drum show for us. All right. Well, listen, we've only got a little bit of time left because, Steve, we've got a meeting
I
coming
got a
up.
meeting in 9 minutes.
That's right.
Chris.
So let's be really targeted here. Let's talk about, as we're transitioning to the news here, the ideal of democracy in the Jewish state is in jeopardy, according to the New York Times.
Oh, Chris, I can't take it.
And then-
I can't take it.
Netanyahu fires back at the New York Times.
Good for him.
And why don't you go ahead and take it from here?
Look, the editorial board at the New York Times is upset.
Hey, when I read that, it was that
They're
the whole editorial board. I go, this is a joke.
Here's why they're upset. They're upset because democracy worked in Israel.
That's right, and they're calling it the democracy in jeopardy.
It worked. Look, we have a vote here in the United States. Quite frankly, I'm mostly disappointed in most of the elections that go on in this country because I didn't get my way. And if you're not on the winning side, okay, yeah, but does it work? Does voting work? Yes, and it works in Israel. The Israeli people have spoken. You like them, you don't like them, you like what they do, you don't. That's sei gesund, live and be well. But the idea of saying democracy is in jeopardy because they don't like people who are more conservative than they are, which, by the way, it doesn't take too much to be more conservative than the New York Times. And that is a political statement. I don't like to get political, but I think any reasonable person in America who knows about the New York Times would not say that it's a center to right group. They have a couple of editorial people who are center to right, but the overwhelming majority, and in fact, without getting too involved in the news, Chris, with all that's going on with Twitter, what do we know about the New York Times with the last election?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't. They were absolutely involved in. The FBI was involved with Twitter, as we're
The
seeing.
Twitter releases have had the New York Times as part of the release that Twitter is giving lately. Isn't that
That's
correct?
exactly right.
So the idea. So the New York Times writes this. They name the ministers in the new government. They don't like them. They cite past infractions that they've done, fairly so. If somebody was involved or convicted of something, they should. But the idea, they're really besmirching the democracy that is going on in Israel. I don't like everything that goes on. We've talked here, Chris, at Jew and Gentile Podcast, when Bennett had 7 seats, and he becomes the prime minister.
Yeah.
You and I said, that's kind of crazy. The guy doesn't even have the majority of seats. That's the way they work.
Well, listen to this from the New York Times. The editorial board writes, the Biden administration should do everything it can to express its support for a society governed by equal rights and the rule of law in Israel, and it does as it does in countries all over the world. That would be an act of friendship consistent with the deep bonds between the two nations. So what's the editorial board saying? Hey, Biden, get involved in Israeli politics and let them know what you think about it. Which is funny to me because it's not as though the elections in Israel in November were stolen. They weren't. It was a fair election. The people of Israel spoke. Benjamin Netanyahu won 24% of all the seats. That's a lot of seats. 32 of 120 seats went to Benjamin Netanyahu. Then under that was the more liberal party, which was in opposition to Netanyahu, got 24 seats. But then under that, you have religious Zionists, you have Shas, you have the United Torah Judaism.
They take it from 32 to 65.
Just like
bada
that.
Bing, bada boom.
And who voted for them? The Israeli people voted for them.
You don't have to like it, but come on, it is a democracy.
That's right. And so that is something that's important to note. And I'll even add this, is the Israeli people are becoming more and more conservative. And Steve, I read an article that said that, oftentimes it's like this in the States. The older the generation, the more conservative they are. The younger, the more liberal. Well, they're seeing that the younger are more conservative than even the older Israelis are. And so you're even seeing that shift. It's already down brewing in the younger young adults of the Israeli society. But it's important to note, just so that people can see, that the Israeli people spoke. And that's what's important to note.
And so we see now from Fox News, Netanyahu shreds New York Times. Oh, boy. There's a little right there.
Right. Exactly.
For demonizing Israel for decades after scathing editorial. So Netanyahu essentially says, okay, you guys wrote about it. I'm telling you, here's what we're going to do. My government will do everything it can to cooperate with U.S. They're our best friends. We're going to demonstrate who we are all the time as the only and strongest democracy in the Middle East. We're going to keep on doing what we do. And I thought his response, we include those in the notes.
He tweeted this out after burying the Holocaust for years on its back pages. That's a dig.
Oh, that's a dig.
And demonizing Israel for decades on its front pages. The New York Times now has shamefully calls for undermining Israel's elected incoming government. And I will say this, Steve. Netanyahu is right. This is the easiest election and forming of government that Israel has seen in the last 4 years.
Yep, no question
about
it.
And so the people have spoken, and the New York Times, you know what the reality is? They just don't like who's coming into office.
That's their privilege. That's fine. Yep. But don't, that headline, yeah.
That's right. All right, Steve, we have 3 minutes.
Yep. All right, 22, this is coming from the Jerusalem Post, 2,200-year-old coins. This is important. They found some gelt, not chocolate gelt, silver gelt. And they found it going back to the period of the Maccabean revolt, were discovered in the Wadi Marabat caves in Nahal Darga, which means, Chris, the whole argument, there's all kinds of political arguments going back, who owns the land and who. I could tell you this. Islam was founded in around 700 or so, 6 something to 7 something. I admit I'm ignorant as to the exact date, but somewhere around that AD.
Good job.
The Maccabee period is 165 years before that. Mm-hmm. Guess what? There were Jews.
Yeah. There were Jews.
And how do I know? Because there was gelt.
That's
and the gelt says...
Does it have chocolate in it?
No. This is gelt, real gelt. And so, if you... Look, archaeology is not my expertise, but I'm glad for archaeologists. And if you're saying, who's older? Whose land is it? It's our land. That's and right. There's proof.
All right, Steve. This is Yiddish. As we move into our Yiddish word of the day.
That's different music. We don't have that upbeat music.
No, this is...
this almost sounds like Christmas music.
This is Oi Khanukah. Oi Khanukah. Oh, joyous one, a happy Hanukkah. Every night we play the dreidel they're singing. We eat lots of sizzling hot latkes. Quickly, children, light the slim candles. This is all in Yiddish that they're singing.
So say the word Hanukkah in Yiddish again,
It
Chris.
looks like it's Khanukah.
Khanukah.
Khanukah. And so that is the Yiddish. Well, here, let's do it. Let's do it at official. Here we go. Oy, 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 oy.
Khanukah.
Khanukah. Happy Khanukah. Oy, Khanukah. Steve, in Hebrew, they say Hag Sameach Hanukkah.
That's right. Hag Sameach Hanukkah. And we got Glenn here and Liz. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas.
That's right. Hey,
Sei gesund. Live and be well. Have a healthy, happy. But we're going to have one more Jew and Gentile podcast before the end of the year.
That's right. Well, everyone, the Yiddish word of the day is Oy Khanukah. Oy Khanukah. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being with us today.
Glenn, thank you.
Yes, Glenn.
Oy Khanukah.
Oy Khanukah. Hey, everybody, just a fresh reminder as we wrap up our Jew and Gentile podcast, go to foiequip.org right now. You can sign up for the next 4 months of classes that we have lined up for you. It's going to be a fantastic time.
And don't be a cheapskate.
That's right.
We want some gelt.
That's right. We want some gelt to help keep the Jew and Gentile podcast going, to help keep FOI Equip going, to help our interns out. You can go to gofoi.org/FOI Equip. Again, that's gofoi.org FOI Equip. Hey, happy Hanukkah, Steve.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you soon. Have a great week.